guys, it's Madison, and presumably you clicked on this video because you're interested in learning Korean or you started learning Korean. And yeah, 10 years ago, I was you. I was interested in learning Korean. I had some Korean friends in high school, and here I am 10 years later, fluent in Korean. It didn't take me 10 years to get to where I'm at, like of constant study, but that's just how long it's been. But 10 years later, I've seen a lot of resources and I've heard a lot of different people talk about how they learn Korean, and I've gathered a lot of experience. I am old and wise in my ways in Korean at this point. Um, and yeah, I figured I could come forth with the knowledge that I have gained, and the number one best resource that there is to learn Korean on the internet for free. And that is Talk to Me in Korean. Now, if at this point you've started learning Korean or you're interested in learning Korean and you've done Google searches, you've probably heard of Talk to Me in Korean, or else I don't know what Google searches you did because you failed. They're pretty well known in the Korean learning community. They are a humongous website, and they also have a YouTube channel, and they just have a ton of free content as well as some stuff that you can pay for. I personally basically just used the free stuff back when I was learning it, like 10 years ago, and it was fine for me. In the past 10 years, they've provided even more and more content. But anyway, my goal of this video today is to just kind of walk you through the website and show you basically the two main things that I use that is free content that they provide that basically got me from very beginner level to maybe not fluent just with Talk to Me in Korean, but they got me like grammatically, I would say they got me like to grammatical fluency. And then also they provide a ton of content that like expands your vocabulary and helps you become very comfortable listening to conversations and stuff like that. So basically from beginner to a decent level of fluency, almost just with Talk to Me in Korean for free. So yeah, let's get started. So here's the Talk to Me in Korean website. You can see it's pretty fancy schmancy with the graphics and all that stuff. Definitely a lot nicer looking than it was 10 years-ish ago when I started using it. Yeah, as far as how much it will cost, they do have some things that you can like pay for that are extra, but all the stuff that I'm going to talk about today is free. Oh yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to show you in the courses section what I personally use to learn Korean, and that is these free essential courses. This goes from level 1 all the way up to level 10, as you can see here. And it goes over. It also shows the number of lessons. So each lesson has 30 lessons. Did I say that right? Each level has 30 lessons, except for the first one, which says 25. And then the extra one, I think, is just like a review, like a level review, I think. I don't know. Let's explore. So I'm going to open up level 2 here. No particular reason why I didn't choose 1. I don't know. I just like 2. So you do have to have an account, but again, like the stuff that I'm recommending is all free. So yeah, here we go, all logged in, and you can see the lessons are set up very clearly. And let's check the last one is, yeah, just a review of the level. And I don't know, I just really like the setup of these lessons. Having used Japanese Pod 101 a little bit, I find their website a little bit overwhelming, not gonna lie. And I feel like the setup of this website is a lot more clear and easy to see. And if you click on one of these lessons, I'll just choose a random one and in with Hago and Irang. You can see at the top they have this the audio podcast version. This lesson happens to be around 20 minutes. And yeah, so you can see they have all of the, written notes that accompany the audio lesson. And you can also have at the bottom here the MP3 version and the PDF version. They do have these things at the top. You can see they have a sample dialogue that has some of the stuff in it, as well as a quiz. But for most of the lessons, that is only for premium members. And so they didn't even exist back when I was learning it. And so I did just fine without it. If you have, money to spend and you want all those extra fancy things, go for it. So yeah, these free essential level courses are basically what took my grammar to the very basic beginner level to, I don't know, pretty much covering all the bases. Like, I'm sure that there are a few sentence structures or grammatical concepts that they do not introduce. They are not perfect and, completely comprehensive of the entire grammar of the Korean language, but they pretty much cover all the bases that you need to get to like pretty much an upper intermediate level. I will say that the first level or two, just a warning, it's a little bit cheesy. I think that both of the teachers that are the two main teachers, Hyunwoo and Kyungwon, they were kind of new to podcasting with each other, and at the beginning stages, they were a little bit like some awkward jokes, cheesy dad joke stuff. A couple levels in, that kind of goes away, thankfully, so it's not just cheesy and lame the entire time. Don't worry. So bear through the cheesiness at the very beginning to get to some really great content. One other comment that I will make about the essential free courses is that at the beginning, they are very English heavy. Obviously, as a very beginning listener, you're not going to know much Korean, so they don't speak in much Korean beyond just the general grammar points or sentence structures or whatever that they're introducing in that particular lesson. But as the levels increase, they speak in more and more and more Korean. So within just a couple levels in, Kyungmin, one of the teachers, is speaking basically exclusively in Korean. And then Hyunwoo also kind of flips back and forth between Korean and English. So by the upper level stuff, there is a lot of Korean just being spoken between the hosts of the podcast itself, which is amazing for building up your listening comprehension and just getting lots of input of what Korean sentences should sound like naturally. And then the other thing that I personally used is the Iyagi series, which they have under here in the premium courses. But from what I could see, it's not actually like under the premium umbrella, if that makes sense. Like they call this one the sample one. And so when I saw this, I was worried that they put it behind the paywall. But from what I could tell, like you can still access all of them. Like here, this isn't the sample one, but they still have it here. Like, and it has the entire dialogue. And that's what I really love about these, because the thing about the lessons that I showed you a second ago from like the free 10 level, basically entirety of Korean grammar, basically, course, is that they focus a lot on like sentence structures or grammar points, or like sentence connectors or stuff like that. More grammar focused and less like vocabulary focused. It wasn't like they would have like a set of vocabulary for each lesson. They would introduce some vocabulary, but that was definitely not the focus. And I kind of felt that I really leveled up and like superpowered my Korean grammar, but I didn't have a very large vocabulary. But these iyagis, and iyagi just means like story or like conversation in Korean, is basically like a lower to upper intermediate listening exercise is what it's called. It says listening in 100% natural Korean. And it's basically just two people. In this one in particular, it's Kyungin and Hyunwoo 선생님. And they just have a conversation about a topic. And this one, 서점, or, bookstores. And I loved these. Like what I would do is I would listen to it. I would see how much I could just understand just listening. And then I would print out the PDF or open it in Adobe. And I would highlight all the words that I didn't know. And I would learn vocab through that. And the other great thing about this is that it's natural conversation. It's not scripted. This dialogue is written after the fact. It just transcribes what they said in the conversation. So it is natural conversation. And it's not really dumbed down. I wouldn't say it's like very, very advanced. Like they know that kind of intermediate learners are listening, so they might like, be cognizant of that as they speak. But in general, it's not like really beginner feeling stuff. It's just kind of like slightly, maybe like not super complicated, but I wouldn't say it's very simple stuff either. Like they talk normally is what I'm trying to say basically. They don't talk super super fast, but they also don't talk very slowly. I find it a pretty natural level of conversation. And yeah, there's a ton of these, and it seems like even though it's listed as a premium thing, it's available for now. I don't know if they're planning on putting it behind a paywall. I hope they don't, because these are awesome, honestly. You can see the last one was like 5 minutes and something, and this one's 9 minutes and something. They're not too burdensome of a length in general. Some of them are a little bit longer, but they're usually fairly bite-sized conversations. So it's a great kind of short form fully transcribed natural conversation, which those are like not easy to find for learners in general. So I think it's an awesome, awesome, awesome resource. I personally started using the Iyagi series, like I think after I made it like all the way through like level 8 or level 9, basically through the entire course as much as they had back when I was learning Korean. And then I started looking for new content and started doing the Iyagi series to kind of, broaden my vocabulary and listening comprehension skills. I don't think you have to wait until you finish all the essential courses. They're labeled as, at least the one I showed you is labeled as intermediate. I would say that like even level 3 or 4, you can probably jump in and give it a shot. Obviously, the higher level you are, the more you're going to comprehend from these, but I think that you don't have to be that high of a level to, you don't have to understand everything in order to get benefit from this. You can, start poring over it and mining for vocabulary, even in level 3 or 4 of the essential free, like grammar style podcasts that they provide. And it's not like these are like, you have to go in order or anything for these. If you wanted to, you could cherry pick which topics are interesting to you. My personal style is to just start at the beginning and go through and not miss anything, even if some of the topics were more or less interesting to me. So I just went through that style. You can do that, or if you want to just pick the topics that are interesting to you. It's not like there's any sort of order that it builds on itself. It's just a bunch of conversations, really. And yeah, those are basically the two free things that Talk to Me in Korean provides for free. I'm sure they provide a ton of other stuff as well, but those are the things that I personally used that got me from, like I said, very beginner to pretty high intermediate, I would say. I didn't exclusively use Talk to Me in Korean when I was learning Korean, and by that I mean like I had other Korean exposure. I would say that as far as like purposeful studying, I pretty much exclusively used Talk to Me in Korean. I would occasionally like dabble in this and that here and there, but I never stuck with anything else besides Talk to Me in Korean. The other thing that I would do is I would watch a lot of Korean TV, whether it be dramas. I love dramas. I also would watch a ton of variety shows as well. And like getting a ton of that input alongside my Korean studying, I think is what got me to fluency, because I would, I wouldn't sit there on one lesson and like work on exercises in that one lesson until I felt comfortable with that one topic. No, I would like binge listen to like an entire level over like 2 or 3 days. And then I would repeat that occasionally. Like I would go back and be like, let's just go through level 2 again while I'm working on this puzzle or something like that. And I would like get the repeated content in that way. I would never do any like written anything. I would just listen to the audio, glance at the lesson notes, but I wouldn't like get out a pencil and paper. That wasn't my style. I was too lazy to do any of that. I would just listen and then glance at the lesson. But then I would hear those grammar structures or sentence structures pop up in dramas. And that was what reinforced it. And I would notice it. And noticing new structures is what gets you to learn the language. So I would notice it in the drama or the variety show or whatever I was watching. And that would reinforce the knowledge and help me to remember it and be able to use it in the future. So yeah, my recommended way to learn Korean is just making use of the free content on Talk to Me in Korean, as well as finding interesting other input in Korean, such as, a drama or variety show or whatever interests you. That is, I recommend it be a video just because then you get the listening comprehension aspect as well as like visual cues that help you. Also, just to put that out there, I watch everything with English subtitles. Even now, I usually put subtitles on just because it's more convenient and I don't want to miss even a single word. And even with subtitles, I would still notice the language and I would still pick up on language aspects. So I personally think it's fine to have subtitles. You can disagree, do what you want to do. But my point is you can still have a ton of listening comprehension and practice and notice things even with subtitles. But yeah, that is Talk to Me in Korean. Their website, like I said, they also have a YouTube channel that has a ton of content as well. Nice, short, simple videos that are really easy to digest, that answer a lot of questions and stuff like that. And let me just say, by the way, this is not a sponsored ad in any sense. They're not paying me anything. Nobody's asked me to say this. I just love Talk to Me in Korean. But yeah, that's the website and the features that I personally used. Like I mentioned, they do have some paid options as well, like textbooks and workbooks that kind of follow along their leveled content. If you personally like to write things down or you feel like you learn better via writing and you have some money to spend, you could do that. I personally didn't, and here I am fluent, so I don't think you have to, but you do you. Whatever you want to do it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for today. So until next time, annyeong.